So welcome once again to Unit 6.2. In our last unit, which is Unit 6.1, we looked at the analysis of cost of integrating ICTs in TVET. And today we're going to look at the budgeting and proposal development strategies for the integration of ICT in TVET. And by the end of this unit, we're supposed to learn how to develop a budget for the integration of ICT in TVET. We're supposed to learn how, we're supposed to identify funding sources to support the integration of ICT in TVET and develop a funding proposal for the integration of ICT in TVET. So, has the organization already developed a budget for the integration of ICT in TVET? Yes or no? Has the organization identified appropriate funding sources to support the integration of ICT in TVET? Has the organization been successful in generating competitive grants and contributions to support the integration of ICT in TVET? So let's move on. Now, looking at this content flow chart, a very good budgeting begins with factor analysis and then to estimate. And the estimate is guided by by the different costs, fixed, variable, or cost per student. And this will enable us to develop a funding plan. And the funding plan will guide us to develop a strategy. Then we devise, we make a list of the funding sources. And having looked at if we identify the sources, we can now develop a proposal based on the guidelines or the requirements of or the provisions of the sources we have identified. So, budgeting for ICT implementation. The decision to use ICT in TVET involves major cost implications. Many training vendors will use rules of thumb to estimate the cost of developing ICT-related teaching and learning. These rules of thumb can be based on either per hour or per screen rates. It takes 600 persons hours to develop 1 hour of high-quality ICT-related teaching and learning materials compared to only 300 hours to develop web computer-based training without audio or video features. So there are factors we have to consider to effectively prepare an estimate. What is the mode of training delivery? What is the bandwidth requirement for web-based courses? What is the subject matter content? What is the duration of training? What is the special features such as radio, audio, video, and animations? Sources of content, need for students tracking capabilities, when is the project starting and when is it ending? What is the nature of in-house contribution in training development? What is the lifespan of course? It is essential to make careful estimate of both fixed and variable costs during the planning stages, as well as the cost for students in relation to institutional policy for access and equity. So a good ICT-based distance education budget should include the following cost listing: fixed costs, variable cost, and cost for students. So fixed cost includes subject matter experts, the cost for subject matter experts, internet specialists, graphics and interface design, library and copyright clearance, technical infrastructure costs, tutors, and administrative costs. While the variable costs include tutoring costs, delivery cost registration, students administration, and then printed materials including postage. The cost for students include fees, required readings, postage, internet access, and computer. Estimates of e-learning costs must also take into consideration whether the course will be delivered or developed in-house, purchased off-the-shelf materials, or as professional custom products. Bates stressed the importance of building the life cycle of a course into the project. The maintenance and upgrading of print-based courses has an annual price tag, which is equal to 10% of the initial development cost. The maintenance and updating cost of web-based costs is approximately 33% of the initial cost. So these are some of the considerations that must be built into the budget also. Funding sources to support the integration of ICT in TVET. For us to identify sources, we need to understand that the great majority of TVET institutions integrate ICT in TVET to improve access to their programs and not as a strategy to increase revenue. So research conducted by Johnson and Benson in the US indicates that TVET institutions adopt ICT-related teaching and learning to reach new and non-traditional students, increase student access, and improve instructions. So given the high cost of ICT-mediated teaching and learning, TVET institutions must develop a sound funding strategy during the planning stage. Now, Bates 2000 identifies several funding strategies that could be considered. One can use external grants. You can charge students technological fees. You can increase the operating grant from government to support the use of technology for teaching. Now you can reallocate internal funds, centralized or decentralized funds, balance funding between infrastructure, administrative applications, and educational applications. And then you can develop a partnership with organizations or consulting. In many countries, there is a vast array of funding sources available to support the integration of ICTs in teaching and learning. The British Educational Communication and Technology Agency, BECTA, provides a list of potential funding sources that supports the development and training in ICT in the UK. Some of these sources are here. We have the Guardian UK Education Website Award, the Guardian Schools Award, the Education Extra Excellence Award, ICT Innovation Awards from National Grid for Learning Scotland, sources of charitable and foundation funding, and many others. You look at it later. Global Opportunity Channel also provided an extensive list of donors who support ICT projects in developing countries. The link will guide you through that. Now, for one to generate a competitive grant and contributions to support the integration of ICT, the funding strategy for ICT must include funds generated from external sources. You will most likely be required to develop an elaborate funding proposal. And therefore, the development of grant proposals is an art and a science. So, for us to develop a good funding proposal, we need to look at some of the outlines. First, we must develop a project summary, which most times are developed at the end of after writing all the major parts. But first of all, you must write a brief description of your organization, the significance of the project, the beneficiaries, the project description, project responsibility framework, project management framework, the budget, and the budget in route and the final evaluation, then reporting and deliverables. In conclusion, this unit highlights the 10-factor analysis for determining cost of ICT mediated learning, as well as variable and cost for students' engagement, including upgrade and maintenance of equipment and facilities. Knowledge of the various costs will determine realistic budgeting and sourcing for funds. So let us look at the transformative reflection. Now that you have completed this segment of instruction, please engage in the following transformative reflection with me. Focus on your assumptions that underline your beliefs, feelings, and actions regarding budget estimates for ICT-mediated education in TVET. Examine and assess the consequences of these assumptions on your beliefs, feelings, and actions in relation to budgeting and the funding sources of ICT-mediated education in TVET. And then consider your learning experiences while completing this segment of instruction. Make a critical reflection regarding the extent to which this instruction has helped you identify and explore alternative sets of assumptions or reinforced your initial assumptions regarding the cost of ICT-mediated education in TVET. Then to the practice questions. Using your transformative reflection experience, we expect you to develop a budget and use it to develop a funding proposal to integrate ICT-mediated teaching and learning in specific TVET grade. If your organization has already developed a budget to integrate ICT-mediated teaching and learning in specific grade, review and revise this budget as may be necessary. Identify agencies and foundations that are interested in funding ICT projects in TVET and make a directory of these potential funding agencies. If your organization has already developed a directory of potential funding agencies, review and revise this directly as may be necessary. Ask a group of key stakeholders in TVET to review this budget, your proposal, and directory. Thank you for listening, and do well to complete the assessment under this unit. Consult the forum and see you in the next unit, which is in 7.1, understanding the potentials of ICT support in TVET. Thank you for listening.